Hi, and welcome to Dirtbike Magazine's 2022 450 MX Shootout. There's never been a time like this. In the past, the choice for a premium motocross bike was limited to 4 brands. Now, with so many special editions in the mix, the decision is overwhelming. KTM, Husqvarna, and GasGas have standard models as well as factory replicas. Kawasaki has the original KX450 along with the KX450 SR. Honda actually has 3 different 450 motocross bikes in the line. The original CRF 450R is offered alongside the high-end CRF 450 RWE and the more affordable CRF 450 RS. Altogether, we have 12 bikes gathered at once. There could have been even more. We couldn't obtain a TM MX450Fi or a standard GasGas MC450F because of availability issues. Now, normally, a 12-bike comparison is impossible. Gathering them is hard enough. Testing them with any degree of accuracy is worse. But this year, we had a 1-year head start. The standard editions of 2022 are predominantly unchanged, so we are already familiar with their strengths and weaknesses. That leaves us to determine where the special editions fit in. We expect them to be better, and for the most part, they are. But are they improved enough to displace the bikes we chose as the top 450s of 2021? In the end, we couldn't rank every single bike in a fabricated countdown. For the conclusion, we've selected the podium finishers. The rest can be sorted out using our ratings in 7 different metrics: peak power, power delivery, cornering, stability, suspension, comfort, and value. Here are the bikes. GasGas is now in its 2nd year under Pereira Mobility, and it's been a huge success. The idea of a less expensive KTM appeals to just about everyone. But this bike isn't about price. The $11,699 MSRP is exactly the same as that of the KTM Factory Edition. The more price-driven parts have all been replaced with high-end items. What this bike is really all about is being a known commodity. The KTM and Husqvarna Special Editions both use the new platform, while the GasGas Troy Lee Edition uses the same frame and engine as the Standard Edition. It has a long list of upgrades like the Akrapovic exhaust and the Hinson clutch cover, and they make it nearly identical to last year's KTM 450 SXF Factory Edition. We absolutely love the GasGas power delivery. It's smooth, controllable, and very, very fast. The Akrapovic exhaust gives it just a little more power down low without any sacrifice. It also ranks near the top of the heap when it comes to cornering. The bike is extremely light, coming in at 225 pounds without fuel. The clutch and brakes are also excellent. On the other hand, the WP Exact Air Fork doesn't rank as highly as the best of the spring forks. The GasGas motor vibrates a little more than most, and the alternate maps and traction control don't really present a substantial advantage or change over the stock setup. Even though this is a new model, it's an established platform that's well loved by almost everyone. GasGas will continue to use this platform as a basis for its 2023 Standard Edition, and that has most riders pleased. Honda completely redesigned this bike last year and made big strides in weight loss, power delivery, and reliability. The frame was redesigned to be less rigid, the twin exhaust system was abandoned, and the clutch got hydraulic actuation, among many other changes. A handlebar switch gives you options between 3 different maps, traction control, and launch assist. In 2021, there were a few built-in mapping glitches that were resolved in the course of the year. The 2022 model is otherwise unchanged. The Honda is wicked fun to ride. That's the result of a hard-hitting power band, a lack of weight, and easy steering. The CRF 450R still feels like one of the lightest bikes in the class and steers with very little effort. It's also one of the most comfortable bikes ever. The riding position, controls, brakes, and clutch pull all combine to make the Honda a bike that feels absolutely right from the moment you get on. The bike's main weakness is mismatched suspension. The rear is too soft for the front. This can be fixed in the aftermarket, but Honda hasn't made the correction in-house as of yet. The Honda also has a very hard-hitting power band. As we said, that makes for a fun bike to ride, but it's not that practical when it comes to racing for position. Still, we enjoy riding the Honda and know how to get the most from it. Justin Jones rode our test bike in the final 2 Nationals of 2021 with only suspension modifications. Honda designed the CRF 450R with talented riders like that in mind, but it isn't as suitable for rank-and-file novices and intermediates. In 2021, Honda brought back the previous version of the CRF 450R as a means to alleviate short-term supply issues. The response was so good that the same bike returned as the 2022 CRF 450RS alongside the standard and the RWE version. The motivation is price. The RS sells for $85.99, making it the most affordable bike in the 450 class. This has the older chassis, the twin exhaust system, and the cable clutch. Like the CRF 450R, the RS is powerful. Twisting the throttle on a fresh track with lots of traction puts a big grin on anyone's face, and most say it's the fastest bike in the entire Shootout. It also has excellent overall suspension. Honda revised this bike every year between 2017 and 2020, so it was at the end of its evolutionary cycle, whereas the 2021 Honda Standard Edition is starting from scratch. The RS also turns well and has excellent ergos. On the flip side, the Honda RS is so powerful that it's hard to ride, even for pros. The old clutch is back on the RS and it still fades. And even though we feel the Honda turns well, it's a very busy motorcycle everywhere. When you combine that with the extreme power and the fact that it's slightly overweight, the Honda CRF 450 RS is a handful. This bike demonstrates how far we've come in 5 years. When the first model of this generation was introduced, we loved it because it was so powerful. Now we've learned that you can go faster with less muscle. We still love riding the Honda, but it's a demanding bike to race. Honda clearly wanted to build something more than another team replica with this bike. The CRF 450 RWE has a long list of features that go beyond team graphics and truly go after more performance. It has tie-nitride treatment on the fork tubes and shock shaft. The clutch cover and the clutch basket are Henson. The pipe is a Yoshimura RS12 full system. The head is ported. The filter is twin air. It has DID Dirtstar LTX rims, a throttle jockey seat cover, and more. The RWE is strong everywhere. Ironically, that makes it a little easier to ride than either of the other Hondas. Power band starts its wild ride at low RPM, making the hit a little less sudden. On top, It makes even more power than the others. Like the standard model, the RWE feels light and easy to toss around. It weighs 234 pounds without fuel, which is 1 pound more than the standard edition due to the various add-ons. The clutch, brakes, ergos, and workmanship are excellent. It is, according to most riders, the best-looking bike in this group. The suspension spring rates are the same as the standard edition. There's reduced friction as a result of the coatings, and that makes the fork feel even softer than that of the standard model, which is already a bit soft. The power is more manageable, but it's still more than most riders really need. The motor does have an occasional hiccup at mid-level throttle openings, and the bike is very busy at speed. Still, there's no bike that turns heads like the CRF 450 RWE. Everyone looks at it and asks about it. It is, just like the other two Hondas, a very aggressive piece of professional equipment, and it's mostly for experienced riders. Husqvarna has been somewhat successful in carving out its own fan club, distinct from KTM's. The biggest factor in this is the change in suspension. The standard edition FC450 has less suspension travel and a lower seat height than the standard KTM 450 SXF. It works out to about 3/4 of an inch in the middle of the seat. Otherwise, the FC450 is very similar to the KTM. It has the same motor, the same frame, the same controls, and the same triple clamps. The bodywork, handlebar, airbox, and rims are different from KTM's. At the very top of the FC450's list of strong points is cornering. This is a strength for all of the Austrian bikes, but thanks to its lower seat height, the Husky sits at the top of that list. It also is easier to get off the start line for both tall and short riders. It's one of the lightest bikes in the Shootout at 223 pounds without fuel. And as always, we love the motor because it has excellent peak power without being intimidating at all. As far as weaknesses go, there are 5 bikes in this comparison that use the WP Exact Airfork, and we feel pretty much the same way about all of them. We love the adjustability, but feel they give away a little performance to the best of the coil spring forks. We feel there's no real disadvantage in the reduced suspension travel of the Husky, although some riders notice the reduction in ground clearance, particularly in rutted tracks. Husky's target rider is said to be a little older than KTM's, simply because of the brand's legacy. That's why the reduced seat height is a smart move. The bike remains virtually on par with the standard KTM in virtually every other way. This year's Rockstar Edition is a completely new bike, sharing virtually no parts with the standard Husky FC450. It happens like this every 4 years or so as the company tools up for a big change, which is coming in 2023. The frame geometry is similar, but has more rigidity. The motor is more compact, the bodywork is new, the shock is new, and there are updated electronic controls. The Rockstar Edition does not have the reduced suspension travel of the standard model. The bike also features Quick Shift, which is a mode that allows easier full throttle upshifts. As a special edition, it also gets goodies like the WP hole shot device, extra guards, and a split triple clamp, but not an FMF exhaust system or recluse clutch cover like last year. The Rockstar Edition might be all new, but it shares many of the same strengths with the previous generation. It's fast and has a smooth, controllable power delivery. Thanks to more aggressive mapping, it also has more power, especially in Map 2. We still consider cornering to be one of the bike's biggest strengths, although it has a very different feel compared to the older version. The bike seems tall in the turns and squats less under power. This bike clearly is more stable in extreme conditions and at high speed. The new frame also puts very different demands on its suspension. That means the old settings that we liked on the previous model don't work as well. We reduced compression damping in an effort to arrive at the same feel, but haven't yet worked out the best settings. This isn't surprising. The bike also gained weight. It comes in at 231 pounds without fuel, which is 8 pounds heavier. Some of that is in the Rockstar Edition parts. We feel the previous model had reached the end of its development cycle. All of the settings have been sorted out, whereas this one is a blank slate that will require testing and adjustment. For those reasons, we consider the Rockstar Edition to be a lateral move in performance. Not better, not worse. This is only the start though, and this platform has lots of room to grow. Kawasaki hasn't made many substantial changes on the standard KX450 since it was redesigned in 2019. That was when it got electric starting, a hydraulic clutch, a new motor, a new chassis, and a very long list of other changes. It's also won every Dirtbike 450 shootout since then. In 2020, it received a cup disc clutch, a Renthal fat bar, and a few other changes, but it remains the same bike with the same personality, which obviously we love. The biggest reason that the Kawasaki has done so well in the pages of Dirtbike is because it's been the easiest bike to ride of all the 450s for some time. That's still true. The power is very smooth, but still strong enough to get the job done against a class of brutes. The bike is virtually free of severe flaws. It isn't heavy, it isn't nervous, it isn't hard to handle, and the suspension isn't harsh. It is about as unintimidating as a 450 can be. In fact, the most damning shortcoming for the KX450 is that it doesn't win any one category. On the dyno, the Kawasaki has a peak output that's about 3 horsepower down compared to the most powerful bikes in the class. The Kawasaki might be the most boring bike in the 450 class, but that's actually a big asset in a group of bikes that can be a little too exciting for the average rider. The Kawasaki KX450 SR is tied with the Honda CRF 450 RWE for the dubious honor of being the most expensive motocross bike on the market today at $12,399. Like the Honda, it goes beyond race replica status by offering value-added features, including a ported head, a Pro Circuit titanium system, and a Henson clutch cover. Kawasaki goes even further by including an X-Trig triple clamp and by using completely different suspension components. The fork and shock are specially prepared KYB components in contrast to the Shoei-equipped Standard Edition. There's nothing boring about the KX450 SR. It has significantly more power than the Standard Edition, but it's still not hard to handle. Kawasaki has successfully walked a very fine line by giving the bike more straight-line acceleration without surrendering the bike's friendliness. The suspension is clearly an upgrade over the Standard Edition too, although not a big one. The overall rates are still on the soft side, which favors older riders and sportsmen more than pros. Like the standard model, the KX450 SR inspires confidence through stability and predictability. You still need to understand that this is a Kawasaki KX450, and it has the same general traits as the Standard Edition. The SR isn't the best in any one area. It still doesn't have the latest user-defined mapping technology. It still doesn't have the thrill factor of the Hondas or the cool kid aura of the Austrian Special Editions. The Kawasaki SR is an upgrade over the stock KX450, which we already love. It has just enough of a performance boost to make it appealing to elite pros without sacrificing its charm to the rest of us. If any bike is a known commodity in the motocross world, it's the KTM 450 SXF. Its last big change was in 2019, when the frame became a little more rigid and it got a new, more compact head. Since then, the bike has been incrementally refined, awaiting the next big change. That will come in 2023. It still has all the things that are KTM staples, like WP suspension, Brembo brakes, and a Brembo hydraulic clutch. First and foremost, the KTM's power delivery is a magic balance between controllability and sheer muscle. It's very difficult to combine those two so well. The fact that the same motor is shared by the GasGas and standard Husky steals the KTM's thunder slightly, but each of those has its own subtly different personality. If you want more throttle response, KTM has a vented airbox cover, which works well with MAP 2. The bike is also the lightest in the Shootout, if only by a few ounces compared to the standard Husky. It's still a good 10 pounds lighter than any of the Japanese bikes. Finally, the KTM is fantastic in turns. Part of that might be because of the lightweight, but more is just good geometry. In truth, we can't really say the KTM's suspension is a real weakness, but there are still purists who don't like the WP Exact Airfork. For extremely high speeds over rough terrain and in G-outs, the chassis can be a little loose feeling too. The motor vibrates a little, and many riders say the neck and bar has a harsh feel to it. There will probably be a run on the remaining KTM 450 SXF dealer inventory now that the word is out that this is its last year in this configuration. The bike's fans are devoted with good reason. There's also a good chance that nothing in the 450 class will ever be this light again. As everyone has probably heard by now, the 2022 KTM 450 SXF Factory Edition is an advanced scout from 2023. It will be manufactured in limited quantity as a pilot run for next year's Standard Edition, thereby giving the KTM Red Bull Racing Team the latest hardware for the Monster Energy Supercross season without violating the production rule. It has a new frame, a new swing arm, a more compact motor, new bodywork, and a new rear shock, among other things. It does not get some of the upgrades that the Factory Edition got in previous years, such as an Akrapovic exhaust and a Henson clutch cover. The bike is very similar to the new Husky Rockstar Edition. Compared to the Standard Edition, the Factory Edition has a more stable, well-planted feel. Steering is light, and it tracks well through turns. Overall, the KTM is still very agile, even though long-time KTM riders might find that it has a very different feel. As far as the power delivery goes, the 450 SXF is still amazing. In MAP 1, it feels similar to the previous KTM 450. In MAP 2, the meat of the power band comes at higher RPM, and if you combine that with the vented airbox cover, you have a very, very powerful motorcycle. The new quick shift mode really does help with full power upshifts on the rare occasion that you really need that. The KTM might not be the cornering wizard it once was. It's a little heavier and steering is a little slower. It squats less under power, and that results in a very tall stance. As we pointed out with the Husqvarna Rockstar, your tried and true suspension settings might or might not work. This is a more rigid chassis that is at the very beginning of its run. The Factory Edition still has an amazing motor, it turns well, and it's still light, if not as light. If you expected a massive improvement, that might yet come in 2023 once we learn how to make the suspension work better with the new frame. For now, we consider the new platform a great start that will only get better. Is there still room in the market for an old-school 450 with a Kickstarter? Suzuki thinks so. It's no secret that Suzuki has scaled back its emphasis on motocross. The current RMZ 450 hasn't changed since 2018, and even then it was behind the times. This is a plain wrap motocross bike with no battery, no electric starter, no on-the-fly map switch, and no traction control. That appeals to certain riders. The Suzuki has a smooth, easy-to-use power band. In many ways, it's similar to the Kawasaki KX450s, and that bike is a habitual shootout winner. It also handles well in turns and is surprisingly stable at speed. In fact, on a tight track, it's capable of keeping up with any bike in the world. The front suspension is excellent, and the bike has a comfortable layout. The Suzuki's one high-tech feature is Suzuki Whole Shot Assist Control, which is a decent launch assist program. To point out the obvious, the RMZ 450 is oddly overweight for a bike with no electric starter. It's 239 pounds without fuel, which places it in the tie as the heaviest here. That was more or less normal 5 years ago, but not now. The Suzuki's current Showa rear shock arrived in 2018 and actually wasn't a real step forward. Everyone is surprised by how well the Suzuki handles and performs once you get over the fact that it's so old school. Pro motocrossers can still make it work at the highest level. Its price makes it attractive to those who don't care about trends and fashion, and it is a staple of the motocross world still. The Yamaha YZ450F demonstrates how fickle the fortunes of pro motocross truly are. 2 years ago, Yamaha's pro racing team couldn't do anything right, and people casually talked trash about the production bike. Now Yamaha is winning everything, and the YZ450F is suddenly a wonder bike. In truth, the YZ hasn't changed that much since its last redesign in 2018. That year saw a total remake for the frame and motor. Yamaha also introduced the PowerTuner smartphone app at that time. The YZ is strong in almost every category across the board. It has excellent suspension at both ends, especially for advanced riders. The coil spring, KYB fork, and shock have become the measuring stick that all other bikes are judged against. The power is excellent in both quality and quantity, and it comes within a few tenths of having the most peak power and is still reasonably controllable. What's better is that you can personalize it with the Yamaha PowerTuner. This is no gimmick. It's a real tool that anyone can master. The bike's straight line stability is also very good. On the other hand, the same old complaints are still valid. Many riders still say that the YZ feels big and clumsy in tight turns. It weighs 239 pounds without fuel on our scale, which is 16 pounds more than the lightest bikes here. Large riders also feel it's a cramped motorcycle with a low seat and high foot pegs. Riders who aren't familiar with Yamahas also complain about the intake noise. Still, we have always loved the YZ450F, even when it wasn't winning races at the pro level. Now, it's especially satisfying that others are seeing it our way. Up front, we promised a podium with the top 3 bikes in the 2022 450 class. We thought it would be a nightmare to sort out a dozen motorcycles. It turned out to be easier than we expected. The bikes that we loved in 2021 are still the bikes we love today, with a little company. First place is the Kawasaki KX450 SR. The KX450 has been our favorite 450 motocross since it was redesigned in 2019. We're mortal. If we were all professional athletes, we wouldn't need a bike this forgiving and sweet. The SR version of the KX is slightly, and only slightly, better in performance. Admittedly, a $3,000 premium over the standard model is a big price for such a small gain, but managing your finances isn't really our job. We don't know how deep your pocket is. We can only say what works best on the track. Second place, not surprisingly, is the standard Kawasaki KX450. We have perhaps the most consistent test riders in the testing world. We like what we like, and the standard Kawasaki KX450 continues to occupy a warm place in our heart for all the reasons we've listed earlier. Third place goes to the Yamaha YZ450F. In our 2021 450 Shootout, the Yamaha finished closely behind the Kawasaki. It does once more. For the record, we could have included a Yamaha YZ450F Monster Energy in this comparison, but it would have finished right on top of this one. That bike is identical to the standard bike in every way except appearance. The YZ450 still has an edge in suspension and technology that allowed it to withstand the onslaught of special editions of 2022. There were high hopes for the new platforms from Austria. As it turned out, the previous bikes from Husky and KTM are so well sorted out that it would be a very tall order for a brand new bike to do better. But the factory and rockstar editions are already so good that they basically battled their respective predecessors to a standstill. That bodes well for the future. As for the two Honda Special Editions, despite a price gap of nearly $4,000, they have oddly similar strengths and weaknesses. We'll be honest, everyone would rather own the Works Edition, which is a gorgeous motorcycle. Everyone would rather pay for the RS. No surprise there. Each of these bikes is featured in its own video within the Dirtbike Year 22 video series. You can also find more details on our 12-bike shootout in the June 2022 print edition of Dirtbike, as well as at dirtbikemagazine.com. Then check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.